It's great to see you. I'm Pete Erickson. I'm the founder of Modev, and I'm the producer of Brands GPT. So I want to welcome you to the first installment of Brands GPT. Welcome. So a little bit about me. I've been doing this 15 years. 12 years ago, we actually organized a hackathon right on site here. I think it was in one of these Lando rooms for mobile development, hence the name Modev. That's where this comes from. But we've always stayed at the forefront. I believe markets are made. I believe human connection is vital. I learned that lesson very early on. It was 15 years ago this January that I hosted my first meetup with 12 people sitting around a pizza shop. A woman grabbed me by the arm and she said, "You've got to keep doing this. I learned more in 2 hours than I have the previous 6 months." And that just stuck with me. It stuck with me that when we're together in person, we do learn more. There's an emotional connection that happens. There's a flow of information that happens. And as we experienced during the pandemic, it cannot replace it with virtual connections. It just doesn't happen. So I love to see this. I'm also the middle child of 10 kids. So I'm used to this. This is what my family room looked like growing up. Any other middle children out there? All right, awesome. Well, awesome. We can talk about why middle children are the best by far. Yeah, so I believe in this. This is what I do. We're excited about today because we're in this new era. So many people to thank for making this even possible. I want to thank our partners at CES. We've been doing events with CES for over 10 years. They are fabulous to work with. They're forward-leaning. And as you can tell by the way this conference is run, they're professionals at what they do. I also want to thank my team behind me. We've been working on this for 6 months, and so many of them are here today. You're going to see several folks on our extended team helping to make sure today runs really smoothly. So thank you so much to our team. And to our speakers. This is not possible without an amazing program. So this is the first panel, but then we've got 3 more panels after this. We have Consumer Brands Get Personal with Comcast and Pinterest. We have McDonald's and Google and Andy Hewell's joining us. And then a milestone for me is we have a cabinet member, Julie Su, Acting Secretary of Labor, is going to be moderating a conversation with Dr. Ehrenfeld, Liz Schuler from AFL-CIO, and Kathy Baxter from Salesforce. Dr. Ehrenfeld is president of the American Medical Association. So many folks are so invested in what's happening right now, and that's what today is all about. And it's fun to have the government aspect of this because when you think about the Fortune 1000, they're Fortune 1, a huge customer. So when we talk about consumer brands, they fit right in there. I want to thank our session sponsors, actonline.org. We just signed a strategic partnership with them. They're our official policy partner this year, going to help us and help our communities navigate policy. And then Outright, who you're going to hear from we're going to get to meet in just a moment, and I'll tell you why, because we have a very exciting announcement we're just about to make. There's a reception in this room. We're going to bring in 2 bars. We're going to dim the lights. We're going to turn on the music, and we're going to have a great time. There were more than 500 people RSVP'd for the reception, so I think it's going to be a little crowded, but definitely come and network with us at the end of the day. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to keep the conversations going. Modev produces multiple events, all in AI. We've run Voice in AI. We're in our 8th year as the top natural language processing conference globally. That's going to happen in October. You're going to see something with these dates, October 28th through 30th. We also produced GovAI Summit. We did the first installment in December. It's the top conference for public sector AI that takes a broad look at AI in the public sector from military to civilian to state and local. A really, really dynamic market right now. Code Forward is our generative coding conference, which really is about where the future of software is. You've all heard ChatGPT can write code now. There's a whole market that's growing up around generative coding. Every aspect of the product lifecycle is getting impacted right now with AI. And now for a little announcement. Audio, please. What do you think? Come on. I've been at this 15 years. This room is a reflection of the network that I've been lucky enough to be able to build. But this is my opus. This conference will be my opus. And what I am looking for is I'm looking for people that want to help make the market. We're in this new era. And is it the market for AI, or is it actually a bigger idea than that? That's why we call the conference Generate, not generative AI. We're in a new era. We've gone from building to generating. If you want to help define the market and help build a new event, please come see me and talk to me. We will be passing out some information on that. So just thank you for letting me make this announcement. The website is now live as of this morning. You can go to generate.ai, check it out. You can request information to sponsor. There is also a pass there called the Founders Pass, the Founders Club Pass. We're only selling 100 of those. Once you're in that Founders Club, you're part of the Founders Club forever. So I want to bring the team up that designed this brand for us. Kate and Antoine, come on up, please. Give it up for Kate and Antoine. They're with Outright Agency, based out of the DC area. They are a fabulous agency. They took the vision out of my brain, and they brought it to life through this Generate brand. And Kate and Antoine, thank you so much for bringing this thing to life. It's going to have a long life, I have a feeling, and your artistic touch is on it. I would love to know what are the 3 words you think about when you hear Generate?
Illuminating, inclusive, and bold.
Nice. Illuminating, inclusive, and bold. And Antoine, how about you?
I would say fluid, interconnected, and unexpected.
All right, unexpected. Well, let's give it up for Kate and Antoine. Thank you so much. They're going to be directing the stage today throughout the day. So that brings us to the start of our program. So please bring up the slide for the first session. And I'd like to introduce the moderator. It's somebody who I've known for a long time. I made a call about 10 years ago. I was looking for a keynote speaker in Boston, and I called this person from Amazon who was working on the very early iterations of Amazon Alexa. And it was a conversation I'll never forget. She was so friendly. She totally got what I was trying to do, and she says, I'm going to come speak, and I'm going to blow that room away. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And she did. You could hear a pin drop in that room, and I'll never forget it. But she's been saying yes to me since then with regards to coming to speak and being a part of what I do. She's a community builder. She's an engineer. She is a leader, and I'm so thrilled to bring up the founder of the AI Leadership Institute, Noelle Russell. Come up, please. Watch your water. Take it away, Noelle. Thank you.
First things first. That's my rule for today. I'm actually going to invite my other 2 panelists to come up because I'm going to get cozy. I don't want to be really far away from them. So I'm going to, is it bad? I'm just going to scoot myself over. If I fall, don't tweet it out to your friends. But it's super exciting time. I really want us, one, this is my style. I like to be friends. We're now going to be friends. I don't know if some of us are friends already. So super excited to see some of my old favorites. But I would love to take some time as we launch this day together to talk to 2 people that represent very divergent paths in the world of generative AI. And our session is about the 5th industrial revolution. But I think it's a really important thing to think about where we were a year ago. And just to give you a journey of what we're going to do today together is that I want to talk about where we were a year ago and what we spent the last year doing. For many of us, certainly those of us who will be coming to talk to you this morning or this afternoon, it was a crazy year. I delivered more projects, I think, in a single year than I have in all of maybe the 2000s combined. It was an incredible, incredible year. That being said, though, it has teed us up to do some very interesting work this year. Something I've come to coin the difference between day 0, which is where we started, the hype cycle. We know it, yes. We were on the hype cycle. Everyone was like, yes, this is awesome, let's go, I love it. And no one was really talking about some of the things that many of, at least a few of you in this room talk about every day, which is the responsible use of this technology. And how do we get to what I call day 2? operationalizing this. And so the two guests that I have here with us today, they represent some of the most unique and interesting use cases and production operationalizing of generative AI and what we're calling the fifth industrial revolution. I'm super excited to bring up, first I'll welcome to the stage Dimitri. He's going to be joining us, and then I'll have May join us. And as soon as they get up here, come on up, May, we'll have them, give them a round of applause. Thank you. Go ahead, have a seat. Pick a seat. Amazing. Thank you. And we can go ahead and sit down, get comfy. But I wanted to take a couple minutes and allow them each to introduce themselves. Many of you know I could introduce them, and I'd be super excited, but I always like to hear people's story. It's something that's different about who we are and what we do. So in addition to what they do and how they do it, I'd love for them to share a little bit about who they are as just a good old human. So we'll start with Dimitri. Is that right? Okay, great. We're going to start with Dimitri. Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, great to be here. It's an important venue to talk, see how people ideate, what people are thinking about in such a remarkable time of churn and opportunity. At DHS, I represent science and technology, the science and technology engine of an operational agency that interacts with all of you. And what we do impacts your lives in ways you realize or don't realize. And so it's a odd collection of things that has been pulled together to really take care of the homeland, our values, our society, and it includes disparate things like Coast Guard and Secret Service or FEMA, Customs and Border Protection and ICE and critical infrastructure with CISA. It's really a remarkable place with all the many components. And trying to understand the science and technology that enables, the many operational parts of a roughly 260,000 person law enforcement organization is just a remarkable place to be right now. Data rich, problem rich, at a time when the world is turning around us in such a way that we have, I think, a unique opportunity to have an impact in ways that we could not before. And it's just a great moment in time right now and a great time to be talking about it.
Wonderful. Thank you. May.
Thanks, Mo. I gotta say, there's very few things that.
I think you have to.
Nope, gotta turn it on again. No AI for that yet. There we go. Gotta say, there are very few things that intimidate me more than speaking on the same panel as a physics professor. So that. A little scared. I'm May Habib, the co-founder and CEO of Writer. I've been in the machine learning and NLP space for more than 10 years. And my first startup was in the machine translation space. It's how we discovered transformer architectures. I was still in the research community at that point. And the rest is history. We started Writer in January 2020, so we're 4 years old as of this week. And it's been an incredible year. When we started, we called our technology content intelligence, content AI, trying to come up with a word for it. And it's just been amazing to see so much go mainstream. What we do is something that we call full stack generative AI. Anybody who's worked with raw large language models in an enterprise setting knows how much work goes into getting those outputs and those generations to do what you want. We're essentially trying to take non-deterministic technology and make it deterministic for enterprise settings. And so we take all of the tooling that folks need and bundle it up into a single platform, making time to value really exceptional, making it easier to build very useful applications without needing dozens of engineers who are running these apps. So you can imagine the last couple of years have been brisk business, and we've gotten the privilege, Noel and Accenture are big partners of ours, to work with incredible enterprises, and excited to tell you some of those learnings and use cases as we dig in.
Amazing. Now, one thing I'm always a little bit interested in is how people even got into this space. And so I certainly have my story, but I would love Dimitri to talk a little bit about Like, what got you into this world? You've been in this world a long time. So I'd love to just share with the audience. And I mean, I'm presuming we all have some relationship with the Department of Homeland Security. Hopefully all positive relationships. But would love to, like, what got you into this space? Were you always in this agency? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, after a career in research, I was at Department of Energy for many years, and so I worked in the nuclear weapons world for a long time, and then broadly into emerging technologies for national security missions, and then broadly for energy, and then recently shifted over to DHS, and it's night and day. I thought the nuclear security world, the national security world, was complicated. The law enforcement world is far more complex.
I think it's so fascinating. Like, I just never think about it from that perspective. And of course, May, you talked a little bit about your history, but maybe for those of us, some of us are in research and in academia and maybe ambition to do the things that you and your team have done. How'd you get started? What brought you into the world of entrepreneurship specifically at this time?
Well, 10 years ago when I started my entrepreneurial career, it was very much about chasing a problem that I felt very passionate about. English wasn't my first language, and I grew up translating for everyone around me. Where's Peter? I'm the oldest of 12, Peter. Not the middle, but yeah, big families represent. And
That's why you didn't flinch at 10.
yeah, no, I didn't flinch. That's you're missing a couple. But the idea that you could have really inequitable outcomes in life because you weren't super fluent in English, that really stuck with me, that experience, and I wanted to do something about it. When we started our generative AI journey, the capabilities weren't as clear as they are today. And I think for the first time in the last few years of us working on this problem, the capabilities of the technology far outstrip the capabilities of most organizations to take advantage of it, which means that the potential for inequity in society from AI really eclipses even language, which is what got me on the entrepreneurial path, which is why I'm so excited to be speaking with Dimitri today, because so much of bridging that potential for social inequity, I think, is going to be something that we're going to want to expect from our government. I take it very personally, and so as a vendor, that skills gap is something that we see as part of our job, but it's something that a lot of people are going to have to contribute to, so that it is not just a boon to most people, but a boon to all people.
Amazing. I love it. I love hearing people's story. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Noelle Russell, as it said, but my AI journey started actually a little over 10 years ago now, when I always tell people Jeff Bezos, he sent me this email and invited me to join a team, and then I have to be honest and be like, okay, it wasn't to me per se, it was to the whole company, but still, I felt like he was speaking to me. And I jumped at the opportunity to work on a project called Amazon Alexa. I was in the earliest team. There was no VPs back then. There were no directors. It was just a manager and 8 people. And I was one of the 8 who jumped in. I built over 100 applications. And the applications that I built were from a very specific part of my life. I have a son with Down syndrome. My dad lives with me. I'm a caregiver. I have 6 kids, so I got some work to do. No, but I have 6 kids, and I just see the world very different than the group of people that I was building Alexa with in those early days. Today, those skills do very well. I just went and checked and had 25,000 4- and 5-star reviews, and I was like, that's not terrible, right? That's not terrible. For someone, I'm not a developer by trade. I'm not classically trained as an AI, scientist. But I will tell you that I am so passionate about the solutions that it has generated that I dove in. I went to Stanford. I went to MIT. I worked with some of my favorite academic people in the world to try and learn, how do I apply this? And so I think today is going to also be a little bit about not just what can we do and what are our organizations thinking about, but what do you, as a very specific individual with a life experience, how can you take that life experience and actually use it to do something? Everyone on this stage represents practical use of our purpose. And I think it's really now more than ever something that we can take advantage of and really step into. So the first question, like I said, last year was pretty fun. It was for me anyway. I am granted on like a 6-week vacation right now because it was so fun, but I'm recovering nicely. But it was awesome. It was super exciting. So I wanted to give a moment for us to talk through kind of the journey of last year. What did we do? What did we see from our different perspectives in the world? So maybe, May, I could start with you. You know, how did you see like your clients, your customers kind of transition between January and December of last year?
Yeah, such a great question. I want to preface it by saying that I still think this is an early adopters market. I think even in the global 2000, our kind of median technology leader is a little risk averse here. And a lot of folks are kind of expecting / hoping that all of the AI kind of comes to them and gets built into all of the products and software they already use. The folks who are really like bleeding edge, and hopefully I'll have a chance to talk folks through kind of practical use cases, things we built with customers over the past year. But those folks really do represent, I think, a fraction of executives that are operating. And we had our first AI Leaders Forum in December, where we brought together a lot of the people who are responsible for scaling up generative AI. And I say generative AI just because it is like a lot of LLM-driven stuff. AI is so much bigger than just generative, as Dimitri knows. But the beginning of the year to the end of the year couldn't be more stark in terms of the risk. If you were in the lucky few, like at an organization where either the board or the CEO or some business leader is like pounding the table, like show me generative AI use cases. If you were in an org that wanted to see progress, then the risk associated with experimentation, like went to negative. Like it was you're damned if you don't, like you better show me something. And that is exciting because it really puts folks on the front foot. Now, like just kind of cutting to the chase, what are the challenges that we saw even in those organizations? I think it comes down to 3 things, and I'd be curious to see if you agree, Noelle. Number one is a talent shortage. I know that we've been talking a lot about, you know, the jobs that AI is going to take away and replace, et cetera, and we have to have that conversation. But also, like, it is really hard to get those left brain, right brain people who've got the AI literacy, the business knowledge, and then like the stakeholder and just bridge building capabilities and skills to re-architect so many of the processes to be AI first, which is where so much of the impact comes from. And what we're starting to see is those folks are getting poached by different organizations. And so, you know, you'll have spent a year really like working diligently through that use case list and like shipping cool stuff and training people, and then you lose the leader. And so I think, you know, the talent shortage is a big one. The second component is the engineering talent shortage. And what's so amazing about this revolution is it turns all of us into application developers. You know, you don't need to code. And I don't just mean like the coding productivity stuff, but I mean like being able to use tools like Writer to build internal tools in a fraction of the time. The capabilities and the skill set to do that is also really rare. So we should probably talk about some of those challenges, but it's been an amazing year and definitely a ton of progress.
Amazing. I think it was just so exhilarating for me to watch those first few months where, like you said, if you were the lucky few, if you were in a company where your leadership was like, go, don't stop. We all know that there were some companies, Samsung, that were like, stop, don't do that. But many companies were like, let's try. And I ended up being part of, at Accenture, our generative AI practice, which wasn't even called that at the beginning. We were just a bunch of people that were excited about it. But we ended up forming a company inside of Accenture. And our job was to get our CEO to go, all right, you're onto something. I don't know if you heard, but she said we're onto something and ended up giving the organization
to the tune of $3 billion. Yeah.
$3 billion, yeah, with a B, by the way. Anyway, so it's super exciting when you're on that path, but I also became keenly aware that not every enterprise was in that space. And specifically, government organizations had a different lens upon which they looked at the world last year. And so super excited to maybe hear you talk about what your year looked like last year and what progress you saw and maybe some challenges.
Yeah, first, I like what you said, May, and the word that I triggered on was re-architecting. I think that is such a key part of what we think about, too, and I want to get back to that. I think that needs to be bold-faced. But, you know, as I think about last year, some of the key things, I think about it in terms of what it did deliver to the country, to the mission. You know, we work in a lot of, you know, frankly, ugly places because the world of, you know, the Homeland Security is a complicated one. So there's a colleague from Portland, Maine office of ICE, and when he talks, he likes to put his phone out, and it beeps. And I repeat this story because it has an impact on me, but it beeps every second or so. And eventually someone asks him, you know, what is that? And he said, that's a child coming up for sale on the dark web. And, you know, limited resources, limited amount of time to do your job. You have to pick and choose the cases you do. One of the areas we work on is child sexual exploitation. It's dark web streaming. It's not archived. It's transactions that are air-gapped in crypto, and so they're not associated. And so it's extracting content. The people that have to do this job, I have a lot of praise for them. They get PTSD. It is a really hard world. Similar is war crimes, where you have to view war crimes, extract content. You want to find people, put them on the no-fly list so they're not flying home with you when you go back to your towns. And so there are a lot of places where we work on the dark web, where you have to figure out how to extract features, signs, information, context to piece together networks, but it's not archived anywhere. It's all done real time, and tools there have had an impact. In this past year, we had a 50x improvement in turnaround time. Instead of 4 cases a year for the team there, it was 4 cases a week. They were getting leads, and you know, these things are real and tangible for really hard jobs. We do a lot of fentanyl tracking, trying to understand transnational criminal organizations, complex sets of data, multi-language, multi-format, millions and millions of documents and content, not parsed by any simple parser or any simple AI approach. You can't containerize it and send it out and get something back that makes any sense. You know, figure of merit we had was in 2019, it would take 10 financial experts 3 years to reconstruct the financial networks for the organization to figure out how to take it down. Now we can do it in days. This is something that was also delivered. We track air and marine operations across the country, drones, civilian, private, unmarked, as well as marine operations in the Caribbean, whatever is going around to understand drug traffic, licit, illicit. We went last year from being able to track 500,000 to over 100 million a year. And using machine learning methods, there was an uptick of about 300% in terms of targets of interest that then lead to law enforcement action. So there are a lot of places in the mission kind of immersed in data complexity and really a dose of reality where you have to use these tools. There is no other way, and finding smart ways to do it has had remarkable impact this past year. More is needed.
Yes. Well,
well
and
as
it's a great
re-architecting.
start, right? And last year, one thing I heard both of you say, which I think is critical, something that I focus on, is metrics, right? Establishing a baseline of where you are. And most organizations already know where they are. They may not know how to get that data or how to read that or understand that data, but they have the data. And that's like good old-fashioned analytics. Like, how long does it take you to do a thing? And then leveraging tools, how much more efficient can you be? And some of these can be as simple as reducing ticket creation, which I've brought tears to people's eyes with the amount of tickets they no longer have to fill. It's very meaningful to some people, like life-changing, not to the tune of what you're talking about, right? World-changing, impact. But impact is available in brand new ways, but only to those organizations who, A, have the ability to establish that baseline and understand where they're starting from, and have executive vision to see it through to the end. That's the other thing we saw. The main reason projects failed last year for us was because we got into a situation where no one knew what good was, or we lost the leader, or the leader got impatient and decided it wasn't worth, we spent $10 million on a project and walked away because we couldn't get the right answer. And I always say, models aren't broken, they're just untrained. But it does take executive leadership to be like, I hold this vision and I know we can do this and it's worth us doing it. So the other thing I saw was that we tied it to core values in the organization. So I love both of you mentioned that. Like, how do you make sure that the thing you're doing is so tied to the core values of your company that you're willing to stick it out and do the hard things to get the right answer? So as we move into kind of almost middle towards the end of our discussion today, I really wanted to explore with our two panelists the idea of what they're doing now. Because I think there's huge richness in what you did and how you established and measured success. But what are you thinking about this year? I mean, we're kind of like, what's day 2 for you? Would love to maybe start with Dimitri and then we can go to May.
So yeah, I guess day 2 we can start with generative, since it's on our mind. We saw it emerge in the public sphere just this past year, although as you've noted, it's been around for some time. There are obvious applications for us at Homeland. One of the things after a disaster, when FEMA comes in, is the ability of citizens to fill in forms and just an assistant to help document, put out the right information into the form so you can, move your processing forward, is something that is moving ahead right now. It is something on certainly my boss's secretary's mind too. And so there are things like that. When I think about generative AI, it is not just large language models in the traditional sense. It is mainly trying to understand the context, the content of very complicated amounts of data and figuring out what you can generate or learn from that. One of the hard tasks in cyber is, and I've met some of the people with these skills who can reverse engineer binary code. They can take a piece of code from a piece of malware in binary form and try and figure out what its function was and perhaps even where it came from. But, you could imagine now large language models built on, whatever integrated set you have of all binaries of malware and try and put that in the context of an expert that could help you in this, where the skill is very hard to come by. I think about it in the field of genomics. We do biosecurity. We worry about what is the next thing. How do you detect it if you don't know what it is? Could you do the same thing for sequence information in a way that would assist you in being more agent agnostic in terms of biodetection? There are many different kinds of data. When you leave here and you go back through Las Vegas Airport, and you should step back, think about the checkpoint there and what it's detecting and the way data is used, and reflect on, well, what is the risk model in terms of identifying what's really in everyone's bag, not just the big blob there that might be this on the list from the library. Is there a smarter way to think through large language models, given that we have about 6 million images per day in this country of handheld luggage? Could we do something different? Reflect on that. And that's the place we need ideas. Almost anywhere you point, generative AI could help us in understanding risk models, but we really need work with the private sector to help think about what is there beyond the horizon that could help us rethink and be more prepared for what's coming.
Amazing, yes. And I think that synergy is extremely important. May, what are your ideas and thoughts on kind of what, I'd like to know a little bit about what you're thinking about this year, but also I think there's a lot of synergy with, what you want to do in coordination for social impact. So feel free to take that in either direction.
Well, I'm excited to potentially not have to unpack all my stuff at the airport. So that would be great.
We'll make sure to flag you.
Thank
That's
you.
right. Take a note, Steve.
Take it out.
I could talk about vision capabilities and Palmyra, our model, being in 30 languages, and we're working on a new architecture that we're calling large reasoning model to handle kind of all agent type tasks in the enterprise. And those are all capabilities. I think what I'm most excited about for the coming year is the use cases that I can't even tell you what they are right now, because our customers are going to come up with them because they've spent so much of 22, 23, building out use cases that have impact. I'll give you an example, or a few examples maybe. Vanguard, they're an amazing customer, do a lot in wealth management, so producing proposals for people with generative AI, et cetera. In their knowledge management practice, they're using Writer to help folks look at trends and get insights from like SEC filings and things like that. At L'Oreal, across 20 brands, they're here at CES. They are automating how blog content gets updated for seasonality. At Kenvue, we help them prepare for the launch of a new brand. They're the makers of Tylenol, Zyrtec, et cetera, in about 1/10 of the time, about half of the cost. And as I look at these teams who have gotten so much kudos internally. They've seen so much impact. They themselves have grown in so much confidence, and people working on those projects like have such higher job satisfaction. Watching what they do with the new capabilities that we release to re-architect processes, to think about what's next for their businesses, I'm most excited about that.
And one of the things I am most excited about is what I heard both of you talking about, which is this synergy between industry, government, and research. And it's something that I've seen anecdotally in my profession. Like when I left Amazon, I went to Microsoft to help launch cognitive services. If you're familiar with it, anyway, there's like this OpenAI thing in there now. Kind of cool stuff. But when I did that, I started off in the research organization. We actually had no anticipation of a real like end user using it. It was just to practice and see what was possible. And the art of the possible that you explore as a research scientist is very different than when I carry them into production and say, now you have deadlines and SLAs and customers. But it's important to keep those two things very well connected. So I think in this coming year, I'm looking forward to the fact that big organizations, academic organizations like Stanford and MIT are coming together to work with companies like Writer, with government organizations, so that we reduce the amount of kind of siloed development that we've seen in the past. And I've already started to see evidence of this, so it's pretty exciting. In the last moments that we have with you, I really wanted to take just a few seconds to give each of us a chance to just talk about really what we're grateful for. Like, what are you grateful for in this space? And what advice would you give to those of us in this room? You know, I think there's, of course, a mixture of people in here, from those trying to build a new company, those who have an existing company, those who are working inside a company, intrapreneurs, entrepreneurs. But I'd love for us to not only talk about kind of what level of gratitude and what we have gratitude for now, but also what advice would you give to those who are in the audience who are looking to do something important in this space? May, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. I'm really grateful for the level of collaboration that exists in generative AI right now. We are maybe just a few steps ahead of our customers on stuff, and it's because we work with so many folks and can pattern match and are obviously working on the research and the technology in parallel. But it means that we have to have a level of openness about where we are, where we actually are, where the research is, what the capabilities are. And customers have to be really transparent around what data they actually have, what budget they actually have, what capabilities actually exist, what talent actually exists. And I now can't even imagine building a company any other way. My first company was not like that at all. Everything else feels very transactional, kind of client vendor, and I'm sure you feel that way too. You really are one team trying to bring a new way of work to your organizations. Our vision is to transform work, to make it more fun, more productive, more creative. And I do think organizations who figure this out are going to be talent magnets, and folks who work on tech-enabled and AI-enabled teams aren't going to be able to work on teams that don't have this level of tooling or understanding. And so I'm most grateful for that.
Dimitri?
Yeah, I would just say, for those who are not in government, and I was in that space before, you know, it is kind of this big blob of something, and sometimes you don't understand what it is, and it has sometimes negative connotations, and it's, inefficient and so on. But I've got to say, you know, what I'm grateful for, certainly in looking at Homeland, the team there across all the operational pieces, the science and technology organization is and all the first responders around the country that we work with, is the willingness to work together to try things. There is this great sense of common purpose that you see from the frontline workers on the southern border to those working up in the Arctic on Coast Guard cutters, or, you know, pick your area. There is this sense of commonality, of serving the country and being open to trying to find better ways to do this job, because they feel they've internalized how important it is. And often there isn't any visible reward. At the end of the day in government, there's no IPO, there's no big bonus, there's no any of that. You have to be happy that it matters. And having a dedicated, you know, set of people who care about this, you know, is really of service to everybody. And I'm really happy that we have that. And you don't see that from the outside, but when you start working problems together, it's there. It works well, and it's important.
What a great way for us to wrap up. I don't know, some of you know who I am, and so I end every talk with a selfie with the people I got a chance to spend some time with. So we're going to do that.